All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. We're really excited to host you today. Before we do get started, there's just some housekeeping that we'd like to run through. The session is being recorded and it will head over to our YouTube channel as soon as we've had a chance to edit it and cut it up. It will definitely be there, probably within the next week. So check back and you'll be able to find the recording there. If you do have any questions, there is a Q&A button. So make sure you add all your questions in there. I'm sure you've got tons of them, Sasha. So make sure you log them. We'll be checking them, and there'll be plenty of time at the end for lots of questions to ask. And I've already said this, but if you're using the chat, make sure that you're using the everyone option, just so that everyone can see what you're saying. And lastly, we do have a code of conduct. If you'd like to read it, you can go and head to figma.com/code of conduct and find it there. Today's session is about accessibility, and in particular, building a business case for accessibility. I know it's a pretty hot topic, so I can't wait for Sasha to explain to us how he's gone about it in the past. My name is Louis Oriash, and I'm a designer advocate at Figma, and my job is basically to talk to all of you and to listen, take it back to the product, get all that feedback to build the best product we possibly can. And today, we are joined by Sasha Grishin, who is the Director of Product Design at Bumble, and I can't wait to see what the slides are. So, Sasha, over to you.
Thank you, Louis. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen. 1 second. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Looking good?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yes, as Louis said, today we're going to talk about embedding accessibility and more specifically building a business case for this program in the large organizations. Before we start, a short introduction. So first of all, as Louis said, I'm a design director at Platform Design. Bumble Inc. is where I work, and Bumble Inc. is a parental company for a range of dating or relationship-related apps. Some of them are pretty mature. Yeah, so Bumble app, which is now our main app in our portfolio, was founded in 2014, but Badoo is even longer, 2006, still both very successful products. Before we go into details, I want to share that this is my personal experience and my personal journey, and it's not related to any specific job or company. All right, what is embedding accessibility? Just want to align on the terminology first. When I say embedding accessibility, I mean the process of reshaping the organization, including the technical organization, to focus on creating accessible products. This is quite a broad definition, and there is a reason for this. To successfully embed accessibility, we need to address it across multiple dimensions. So not just tech or design and development in specifically, but there should be some support from people and culture team, from legal, from finance, and so on. So today I'm going to speak about embedding in a bit more wider context. I hope that this presentation will help you. I will give you an example how to break complex programs into a more digestible, manageable parts with the clear success measures. We're going to speak about presenting the program to executive leadership team to get the budget behind this and to get it staffed. And we explain how to embed accessibility practices in the tech organization specifically. All right. So let's start with a typical product lifecycle. All right. Everyone saw this diagram. And what's interesting here is an observation and at what stages companies typically approach embedding accessibility or thinking about accessibility, right? So if you are in the startup company, probably the biggest need the leadership has is to find product market fit. They're burning cash. They desperately try to find working profitable model of their product or their business. And obviously accessibility is not the top of their priorities, right? it doesn't mean that designers or engineers shouldn't do what's possible to build accessible experiences. It's just probably not the right stage of the company to build next embedding accessibility programs. That's what I'm trying to say. Once a company found its product market fit, it starts exponentially growing. So it enters this growth phase. And again, I imagine the biggest need of the leadership is to expand, is to ship and tailor any experiences as fast as possible. And again, this is probably where they can sacrifice a little bit the need of accessibility. Again, at larger scale. By the time the company reaches its maturity, both as the product, but also as the market saturates, they start to address previously undeserved audiences, right? So the customer user base becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, much more diverse. And at this stage, the risks which are associated with non-accessible product development increase significantly. Besides, there is a big appetite from the customers to have a more accessible product experiences. And typically, this is the perfect moment when the leadership is actually asking, what can we do to build more accessible experiences? Not the case all the time, but that's just my observation from the industry. Okay, so we got to this maturity stage, and now we're ready to embed accessibility. What are the prices to pay? Okay, probably at this point, you have a very fine-tuned product ecosystem. Bear with me, sorry, I need to move this window. Sorry. Yes, apologies. Yes, so at this stage, probably the ecosystem and the product itself is so fine-tuned, you know, like teams worked, teams produced a lot of efforts to, you know, like find or increase those metrics. So everything is working pretty well. At this point, any changes, especially major changes to UX UI, could impact negatively product KPIs. And this is definitely something you would like to avoid. Ideally, accessibility should not come at the cost of like harming the business, right? And because of this fine-tuned ecosystem, you have a pretty complex way of rolling out any changes, right? So typically it might include multivariant testing, analyzing the impact of those changes and so on. So that's the price on the product side. When we speak about organization, there is also a tax because the org became so complex. You have hundreds of employees, multiple functions, etc. Probably at this point, you have very limited awareness of digital accessibility. Maybe in some pockets of the business, people do understand what accessibility is, but there is no like shared knowledge and shared experiences in how to create those experiences. There is probably no practices, no systems or frameworks established to support this practice. Okay. It's quite a challenging moment for any design leader or any leader in the organization. So I wanted to include this slide to draw some attention to opportunities for you as on a personal level. So first of all, the impact of this program would be very big. Think about your end users, think about your organization. This could help you also elevate your profile in the organization and increase your influence. Because it will be a very complex project, get ready to flex your program and project management muscles. If you are not very good at this, obviously you will have to upskill yourself. But again, this is a perfect opportunity to actually do something very complex and very large scale. And last but not least, obviously, it's a very ethical, a very design-led, and very user-centric thing to do. And for any of us as designers, it's just a nice thing to have on your CV. All right, so that was the intro part. Now let's discuss the benefits that come from embedding accessibility. And this is quite a critical moment to understand those benefits and to really resonate with those benefits, right? Because if those benefits, if you kind of adapt those benefits and they come naturally from you, people will feel it. People will understand that yes, indeed, you are very confident about those benefits, and your advocacy will feel a bit more organic and a bit more natural. So apart from very obvious legal benefits, there are maybe less obvious benefits, which I would like to explain in a bit more details. They include financial opportunities for the business, an impact on user experience, contribution to product strategy, and alignment with brand values. On the next slides, I will go through all of them in more details. Let's talk about finance. This is what business understands very well. And there were a multiple of studies that, for example, Americans with disabilities has 490 billion in yearly disposable income, which is huge, which is an enormous amount of money. What's important to know here is people with disabilities, they all have friends, they all have families, they all have their colleagues or communities, right? So what this all makes is kind of like a positive word of mouth, and their advocacy can reach to like 1.3 billion of people globally. This is not my estimations, but there were studies around this, again, touching around 53% of the consumers. And as we know, population ages and life expectancy increases, so and the spread of the technology become bigger and bigger. So it all leads to a growing market of people who require like some special experiences to help to make those products usable for them. So that was the financial opportunities. Improving accessibility will impact everyone, user experience. So this slide, or this diagram, or this iconography, I should say, was taken from a Microsoft Inclusive Design book. And what it illustrates is how a disability can be not a permanent, but a temporary and even a situational thing. And in this example, we can think about people who are temporarily disabled. So for example, if you had some surgery or you are on a medicine which affects your eyesight, for example, right? You are considered to be a temporary disabled individual. There are things when you are situationally disabled. For example, a mother carrying a baby cannot use your product with both hands, so she will be using your product with one hand, for example. There is also people who are mildly disabled, so not necessarily they are having some severe impairments, but they will still benefit from accessibility improvements of your product. So yeah, as you can see here, there is a whole range of or like bigger spectrum of your customers which will benefit from the accessibility. And I want to draw your attention to those circles, which is also quite interesting. So if we think about permanently disabled customers, in this case, it's people with one arm. it's estimated that around 26,000 of Americans are in this category. But also, if we will then add situational and temporary disabled individuals, we have a total addressable market in the States of around 21 million, even more than this, which is huge, you know, and this is also what we need to think when we approach accessibility. We're not doing it for the minority of our users, we're doing it for the majority of our user base. And that's the important takeaway. Apart from the impact on the UX itself, such embedding accessibility can positively impact the UX organization or design team, whatever it's called in your case. So first of all, accessibility definitely nurtures the customer centricity culture, which design team should have by default. But again, it's a way to reinforce this. On the practical side of things, building accessible experiences will help your team or yourself to get better at testing and researching, usability researching. If we have such constraints, those constraints will inevitably require us to think more creatively and approach things in a less traditional, less straightforward way. And I can show you here some of the examples, not digital products, but obviously physical ones. But all of them came as a result of the limitations, and they became quite anachronic. If we think about digital product, one of them is Gov.uk. People who are based in the UK know how usable this website is, and I genuinely enjoy using Gov.uk website because of such attention to usability and accessibility. Lastly, embedding accessibility will contribute to your product strategy and reinforce your brand. When it comes to product, if you are working on a product that serves older demographic group, obviously it's no-brainer that improving accessibility will make your product much more appealing for this audience. Think about any life insurance or, well, whatever products an older demographic group uses, right? This can enhance their experience. Surprisingly, search engines like Google prioritize accessible websites, so it will definitely impact your SEO. And many teams out there promote that they're here to build inclusive experiences, and this is baked in their principles or values. And again, you can use this to as a lever to explain that embedding accessibility is the right thing to do. On the brand side, delivering on the brand promise, many companies out there today speaks that they prioritize DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So what it means on practice is our brand or our product basically delivers on the brand promise, as well, making brand appealing to older demographic group, and also, as I said, building loyalty, trust, and fostering that positive word of mouth. Okay, so just to summarize, to make a summary on this section, apart from obvious legal requirements, accessibility can generate more revenue, enhance usability, and elevate your brand. And also, on the organization side, it will improve improving accessibility will foster a customer-first culture. All right, so once we understood that this is the right problem to solve, now we need to approach executive leadership team to get their buy-in. And as a result of this buy-in, we should have their awareness of the risks and opportunities related to the accessibility. We also would like to get their approval for this program and bake this program into the annual strategy or whatever planning period you have in your business, let's say strategy. On the practical side of things, we want to have some budget allocated, which we might use for accessibility evaluation or any audits, or even hiring if we have any gaps in our current teams. And ultimately, we want this program to be staffed. So we want to have cross-functional team or teams who will be actually helping us in embedding accessibility. It's always nice to approach executive leadership team with a clear overview of the risks and opportunities that are associated with this program. Also, bring customer and internal perspectives on why this is an important thing to solve, and not just come with the problems, right? But also give them some potential scenarios and costs associated with those scenarios. So let's go through these points one by one. So risks and opportunities. Obviously, typically it's like a multiple pages document, multiple pages, but I made a quick summary here. So if we're talking about risks, there are two main risks. First one is financial risk as a result of any lawsuits which might happen. And also there is like brand and reputational risks, which eventually will also lead to the financial losses, but it's kind of slightly separate. So we know there are studies, there is statistics that there is a growing amount of accessibility related lawsuits, both in the US, but also like globally. In the EU, it's pretty similar, but just on a smaller scale. I believe people in the States, some people in the States, they earn money for living by like suing companies. So, I mean, it's not like a joke, but there are some lawyers which are, earn their money by doing this, right? So if you are a big business in the States, it's just a matter of time when you will have a lawsuit. But it also have an opportunity, as I said, and here, again, from the US government, some data. I pulled only percentage of people who have cognition and visual disabilities, because this matters mostly for digital products. Still pretty significant numbers if you think about them. Another risk is related to brand. So as I said previously, we live in the world where DEI is really important, and everyone is expecting that the brands will demonstrate how they commit to these values, not just by saying, but actually by actioning, right? And if words go against the actions, or actions go against the words, then there is a risk associated, right? An opportunity on the positive side of things, if we embed accessibility and we do it in a successful way, this can build a positive perception of the brand, and also it can create a positive work environment for our employees. Once we have identified risks and opportunities, we can also present some scenarios and costs associated. I have outlined 4 scenarios here and prioritize them based on the investment levels or the costs that are associated. Once again, this example is for mature organization. So we assume that by this time, the company or the product has accumulated some amount of accessibility debt. So there are some accessibility issues in the product, etc., right? So there are 2 ways to address them. Being reactive, so like releasing this debt, waiting until it accumulates to a specific backlog, right? And then we address this backlog, or proactively embed accessibility, and as a result, we won't grow this backlog, and eventually we will get rid of all our accessibility issues. So two different approaches. In terms of scenarios, right? So the first one is we won't do anything. We will wait until we have a lawsuit. And typically, again, based on the data, we know that the settlement of those lawsuits is about like thousands of dollars. So it's like really not much compared to the cost of fixing this debt. Worst thing is if there is a class action lawsuit. Class action lawsuit is when a group of individuals suing a company, and in this case, a settlement fee can reach millions of dollars, right? And so this is less likely, but possible as well, right? So that was scenario of doing nothing. Then how we gonna retrospectively address the debt? First one is we can set up a dedicated team. And this team will be responsible for fixing all those issues. In many of your companies, you have multiple tribes or pods or whatever they are called, right? So in this case, we have a dedicated tribe or pod. And this team is responsible for fixing issues regardless of your customer journey or the places in the product. So they kind of like address them in a centralized manner. The third scenario is when we have a centralized team, but this team gets support from those cross-functional teams or pods, if you wish. In this case, the role of the centralized team is to facilitate and maybe lead some of those fixes, and then cross-functional teams fix their respective areas. So if you have a top of the funnel team, they can fix all the issues in the top of the funnel. If you have I don't know, growth team, they can fix anything related to your product-led growth, etc. In terms of the costs, it also requires funding of a centralized team, but also additional expenses associated with coordination across those teams. Probably will take some of these teams' time as well, so we need to factor these costs as well. And the fourth, which is the most expensive scenario, is embedding accessibility in a product development lifecycle. This is where we impact every single cross-functional team. And obviously, the costs are quite high. First of all, we need to train those teams in a much larger scale. We need probably to provide tools for those teams, set up the processes, and coordinate how we're going to embed accessibility. With embedding, the gains won't be seen pretty immediately. So there will be a natural delay once we embed, and then we can see and we can understand the impact of this embedding. Okay, so that also needs to be considered. Whereas the second and the third scenario can give you, especially the second scenario, can give you much quicker wins and much more tangible impact, immediate impact. It's also nice to bring some customer and employees' perspectives. And when it comes to employees' perspectives, obviously, you can identify functions or leaders who will benefit from this program and join the efforts in advocating for this. And also on the ground level, you will be surprised how many engineers, designers, content writers actually do care about accessibility. So what's nice about those people is they can become also accessibility champions. So it's always nice to keep your eyes open and see those examples of advocacy. Bring customer feedback related to accessibility, and maybe create some of the insights for the leadership as well. And I know at this point we don't have any budget yet, but you are still able to do some at least heuristic evaluation with your team. Say you work in design, so you can work with your UX team, or you can use any free evaluation tools like browser plugins if you do a website, or I'm sure there are some free tools to evaluate accessibility of the native apps as well, right? So, yeah. All right, so to summarize this section, it's always nice to apply business perspective to your proposals to identify risks and opportunities, but also come with some scenarios and costs associated with those scenarios, as well as gains. Always come prepared with any insights from industry or from your customers, and bring your internal sponsors along. Okay, so let's say we got the approval from the EL team, and now the fun part begins, because now you need to demonstrate that you're able to execute. And when we approach execution of this program, it's actually pretty complicated, at least to me. There is a lot of ambiguity, where to start, how to deal with this, etc., right? And most importantly, there is an expectation of early value from this program, right? You probably won't be in a good position if you say, all right, I'll see you next year. I'll bring you some results next year, right? So it's always good to demonstrate quick wins and bring value as early as possible. So how to navigate this ambiguity? Well, first of all, we need to develop a comprehensive plan. And I'll talk about planning and phasing on the next slides. During this planning session, it's important to understand what are the dependencies and what are the risks associated with executing this program, who are our stakeholders and who are our peers, and how we can collaborate with them, and so on and so on. Honestly, this is like a very complex, big amount of work to define this program. So in this presentation, I want to touch on three things: how we phase and plan, how we allocate resources, and explain about those three phases, which I think might be helpful for you. So in terms of the phasing, why we need to phase this? So first of all, embedding accessibility is a pretty complex program, as I said. So if we will phase it, and we can define like different phases, first of all, we will make our lives easier, because it will be easier to manage. We can always set a very clear success measures for each of the phases. We can focus all our efforts on something very small and tangible. It's also a very lean approach, right? So very economical. So we start small, we demonstrate a value, and then we scale up and so on. And also it's pretty agile. So let's start small, let's see how we're doing, let's improve, and so on, right? So three phases, and I'll explain what these phases are and why I believe it's an interesting approach to take. So the first phase is to fix the most critical, the most critical accessibility issues in your product, and to demonstrate the value quickly, but also to gain the knowledge by doing and the practical skills by doing this. It's typically I would like to run it with one cross-functional team over a quarter, and then at the end we can demonstrate the impact, and we can gain this knowledge. Then we can expand this knowledge to the wider organization, and this is what we call educate phase. So think about this: you had a small team which learned how to fix those things in design, in engineering, in content. So this team can then document all of these best practices, or maybe create some learning programs for your organization, and then you can use these materials to educate, to bring this knowledge to the wider tech organization. right? Typically, this is driven by accessibility champions from each of the functional teams. So you have a designer advocating across design organization, an engineer in the engineering, and so on and so on. And typically, because it's a large organization, we expect that we will run the educational program over the 2 quarters. And then once we have the org educated about the importance of accessibility and how to do this, then we start building all these supportive systems and frameworks and processes and actually start embedding it into the organization. If you start embedding it straight away, you might, first of all, delay the impact. And as you remember, I was saying that leadership would like to see an impact early. And you also, without educating, you also could face a resistance from the organization, like why we need to do so and what exactly we need to do so. Okay, so to me, it's kind of this framework helps to demonstrate value, helps to educate and advocate for the change, and then implement this change. So the fixing phase. The fixing phase objective is to demonstrate quick wins, gain knowledge and experience in building accessible product experiences. So a couple of things here. It's always nice to start with an audit as a benchmark. By this time, probably you have already some budget allocated, so you can reach out to third-party parties like Level Access or Fable or other external teams, companies that run accessibility audits. Or you can use your free tools to make an audit. Worst case scenario, you can just heuristically evaluate it by the team based on your experience and understanding of accessibility. As a result of this, you will have a huge backlog of the issues, and it's important to prioritize those issues right. So couple of points here. Probably you want to address things which are exposed to the customers first, more important, exposed to the customers. So top of the funnel in your product experience, definitely things to prioritize. When it comes to severity of those issues, it probably was responding to most critical and high issues. You will need to understand what's the effort required for fixing those issues. And in this case, go with the low-hanging, less effort, less issues first. And remember, we are working with the mature product, and any changes that we will do might impact the ecosystem. So in this case, do address non-critical issues first. So the things which you as a team are confident that this won't hurt any product metrics. Okay, so you have this list of prioritized issues, and then you probably start fixing them, and then you validate them by running an audit or using free tools and so on. And this is how you quickly demonstrate the value. All right, so it's very possible to do this in 1 quarter with a relatively small team. So as you remember, we want to do this to gain the knowledge. Okay, and it's important to introduce a knowledge base. So for example, it could be a Notion, it could be a Confluence, it could be whatever you guys think is appropriate. It's important to understand how to contribute to this knowledge base. And as you build and fix things, do capture all the learnings and best practices. So you will have not just fixes of most critical low-hanging fruit, low effort issues, but you also, and most importantly, will get this knowledge and experience. As a manager of this team, or you can delegate this to someone, definitely needs to monitor team's velocity and how much time is spent on the efforts. Again, you will use this as a benchmark when you will start to embed things. Along this fixing phase, do provide regular updates to the leadership, keep them informed. And those people who will be part of this working group, they could be also accessibility champions in their functions, because again, probably they will get a lot of knowledge and experience in this. Finish this phase with the success story, and also run a retrospective with your team to get all the learnings across different functions. Now we're starting the educating phase, and our objective is to promote accessible product development, educate the tech org on digital accessibility. This is where you probably will need to understand what the existing knowledge level in your organization. So you can do this by running a survey, just to create a snapshot of what the team knowledge is currently. It's also nice to, as a result of the fixed phase, to develop a learning path. I would say like 2 hours of learning can give a good understanding of the accessibility development practices. And of course, if people will need to do like learn more, they can always learn more, but 2 hours to me seems like a appropriate amount of time. Those learning paths, you can either buy it from vendors. Both Level, Access, and Fable, they do provide the educational platforms. Extremely expensive, I should say, extremely expensive. Alternatively, you can build those learning paths, not the program, sorry, it's a typo. Not build the program in-house, but build the learning path in-house. It will require some upfront effort, but again, you massively save save the budget here. Then you probably will run a program, the educational program, with a small cross-functional peer group, just to assess the content and how the learning platform works and get their early feedback. And then you basically run the educational program. As I said, allocate around 2 quarters for this. I mean, including the building of the learning path and then the program itself. And at the end, do this similar survey to understand how much you moved increase the knowledge of the organization. All right. As a result of this, people should understand why it's important to build accessible product experiences and how to build them. Couple of learnings. The success of this phase relies significantly on the engagement and advocacy, and it's your responsibility as a leader to engage the audience or the organization and to keep advocating for the value of this educate phase. Good thing to do is to involve external experts. If you have some budget, you can bring some knowledge, some experts there, and also try to be creative. All right, you can do all sorts of cool things like accessibility quiz, or like you can report on which functions learn better, complete those learning paths faster than the other functions. So, like, as I said, engagement in this program is essential. And also keep sharing success stories from specific functions. So if, as a result of this educational program, a content designer has created a more accessible content, and this has been seen or appreciated by a customer, like, do share this, and then we approach the embedding phase. So in the embedding phase, we want to embed accessibility compliance in our product development lifecycle. And this is huge thing. So what I'll tell you here is, first of all, you probably will need to agree on the compliance level with leadership. And it's not something lightweight, right? Any compliance level that we commit to meet will result in slowing down the teams or bigger time to market. As a result, higher development costs. So, like, be very aware of this. We then probably will need, as a result of this, once we agree with the compliance level, we need to translate the compliance level for the functional requirements. So for example, if we say, okay, we agree that we will meet the majority of AA requirements, how this translates to what designer needs to do, what's the definition of good looks like for engineers, for localization team, and so on. Giving them just a WCAG standard with some abstract requirements won't be well perceived, I should say. And those acceptance criteria or definition of good, it's always nice to provide some tools that will help teams evaluate the output against those requirements. So it can be some Figma plugins, it can be some browser extensions, etc. So if we ask the teams to comply with the certain standard, what are the tools or resources we are providing to them to make sure that they know how to measure the output of their work against these requirements? There is also an interesting framework developed by Level Access. Level Access is kind of like an expert with evaluating and mitigating accessibility, meeting accessibility compliance. It's a big organization. So they released this digital accessibility maturity model. Initially, it was used to for them as a consultancy to evaluate the state of accessibility in any of their clients' organizations, but it's publicly available. You can search for this, and it's interesting to see that it goes across 11 dimensions. Okay, so all these dimensions are here. What's interesting that development lifecycle testing and validation are just 2 dimensions out of 11. And based on my experience, that's very true. You know, you can't embed accessibility just by addressing developers or designers and the tech work. You need like a more holistic approach to this. Yeah, so they define 5 levels of maturity. This is an example of how a company is scored against those 11 dimensions. You can see those dots. Again, it's not like something that you need to adopt and go by the book. It's just like one way of doing things. I personally like it because it's kind of validates that embedding accessibility is a much more holistic approach than just addressing it in the tech organization. So speaking about this, in my experience, key teams that you will need to work with will be obviously your tech organization, designers, engineers, QA, content writers, localization, you name it. Then people and culture team for hiring and nurturing talents, right? So we want engineers and designers who are aware of accessibility. PNC will be also your partners in shaping the right culture. Internal comms team, or comms team that deals with internal and external communications to help you promote the value of this program. Finance team for budgets, and legal team for the compliance. And because you will be dealing with so many different job families, it will be pretty complex program. So do expect a lot of like program management, project management, presentations, reporting, and so on. All right, how are we on time? Some valuable lessons. So the success of this phase depends on the relationships with senior and executive leadership, and it's your role to strengthen and maintain them. Another thing is accessibility champions, right? They will be your supporting bubble, right? So I do appreciate their passion and contribution. And set the right accountability. It's not on you, it's not on one team, but it's on everyone to make sure that your company build accessible product experiences. Your role as a leader is to create the vision, facilitate and support implementation of this program, but it's the teams themselves who are ultimately accountable for the success. And kind of like bread and butter, keep tracking, measuring success measures, and regularly celebrate small achievements. Just a few summary. Phase the program to start lean and agile, learn by doing and capture the learnings, regularly demonstrate value and celebrate success, acquire knowledge during the fix phase, enhance and distribute it during your educate phase, and then support through practice by building systems, frameworks, processes around this, and keep advocating. Right, so I'm always done. Final takeaways, and I want to explain some personal takeaways, okay? Because we have a lot of passionate folks here. So, as I said initially, embedding accessibility is a significant and rewarding challenge. It's an opportunity to make significant impact on the product and across the entire org. As a leader, you will need to leverage all your leadership and management skills, especially adaptive leadership, to be a bit more directive during the fix phase, but then leaning towards a more democratic leadership style when you embed these things. And last but not least, accessibility is a team sport. So prioritize people, prioritize your peers, because they are the one who will build this, not you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. That was very rich, full of information. I'll let you take a drink. And then we have a ton of questions from the audience. So your user testing, when you're user testing accessibility, how do you go about that? And what advice would you have for a team that's looking to start testing these ideas out on their customers?
There is a very good platform named Fable that provides access to people with certain impairments. So do use those platforms. If you recruit those people themselves, just make sure that you have the whole range of impairments or disabilities, okay? And you evaluate your product against people who have like sight impairments, physical impairments, and some cognitive impairments, and so on.
Nice. So go and check out Fable.
Yeah.
And if you're a small team and just looking to maybe even starting a design team from scratch, what advice would you have for people to make sure they're embedding these practices in from the first minute?
Yes, as I said, you don't need to go that big and impact the whole organization. There are small things which you can do as a designer, like the standards are out there, and there are small things like taking care of contrast ratio, dynamic typeface, and so on and so on. Like focus states, focus order, and everything. So there are definitely things which you can do on your level as a designer. Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into the next question about the ownership of accessibility. And I think it's very easy for designers to see that as a design problem to solve, but can't really be solved unless developers are also engaged and doing their best as well. So do you think that there should be way more communication, collaboration from the outset on this kind of project, rather than it being like a design project that is owned by that team?
Oh yeah, 100%, 200%. As I said, shipping a truly accessible experience requires effort from engineering. So there are simply some requirements which are outside of designers' remit, like how to support assistive technologies, how to deal with the focus order, etc. So this is where you, as an advocate for this, needs to work with the engineering leadership, and also, like promote this, the value of accessibility among the engineers. So as a designer, you will be very limited with what you can do alone, and you definitely need an engineers, localization team, content writers, researchers to support you.
Nice. And then last question is about the sort of the educational alley program that you advise people to build internally, and the advocates that you have, and the you need to learn X, Y, Z things about accessibility before you're considered like expert internally. Do you have like levels of gradation within this, or is it sort of a set amount of things that every designer needs to do in their job?
It's more like a set of things. So we have, in my experience, when you have approved a certain level of compliance that you aimed to meet, it's kind of like all in or nothing. Of course, listen, of course, we need to take into account all the different nuances and situations in which the teams operate. So if they need to launch something as quickly as possible as a hot fix, or just to meet some kind of compliance, let's say safety related compliance, of course, like they have tight deadline, they need to launch it. Maybe they can drop some of those accessibility requirements. But in the ideal world, in the normal circumstances, we expect designers as well as engineers to meet all the requirements which we committed to.
So would you advise putting that in the like leveling charts of every designer?
Oh yeah. You mean the career frameworks?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yes. It's there. I mean,
perfect.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a nice place for us to finish. Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, we're done. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.